Thank you very much, Mr. Katra. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Representative Bronko, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Katra, thank you for coming here today. You are my registrar.
I am.
And it's just for the committee, I don't know anyone that serves in this position that is more committed to doing this job. That it's not something you run for just to do on the side. You take this very seriously.
I do.
And I commend you for not only the effort you put into it, but the time, including your own time. And I know that you took the day today just to be up here to provide testimony to us. So I commend you for the efforts you put into this. And, you know, as we develop this whole early voting thing, you know, there's a lot of components to it. And not to be lost is the work that our registrars do. Can you explain a little bit more how this will impact you personally in terms of you're going to require more vacation time? You know, is this something that in the current way set up that you can even handle? And it's going to require a lot more from you. Can you talk a little bit about the impact this will have on you?
I definitely wouldn't be able to take 14 extra days of vacation every single election for my job. It just would be impossible. I'd lose that. I'd lose that job, and I think most registrars who are in the same situation would have to choose between one or the other. And at $5,000 a year for registrar, that decision's pretty easy to make. But even if we're in the legislation where it says you could hire someone to act in your role, they just don't have the training to be able to handle every situation. We as registrars are going to have to be available, without a doubt. I mean, whether it's one registrar or the other. I mean, I work very closely with our Democratic registrar in Naugatuck, Louise, who, you know, I spoke on her behalf too here. So, you know, we have a very good working relationship, but that's some things only we have the training to handle and would be able to do. So it would be very impactful, you know, to try to balance that full-time work and registrar work for 14 days or 18 days or even 10 days for every single election. You know, next fiscal year, we're looking at 3 different cycles between a local primary, a local election, and a presidential primary. And that doesn't even include, you know, special elections that come up on occasion and, you know, referendum that has been discussed earlier today. So it would be extremely difficult for the part-time registrars.
And we're fortunate in Naugatuck to have 2 registrars that care very deeply and are committed to running safe, secure, efficient elections. Yeah, and as far as the costs, we've kind of touched on some of them, but some of the ancillary costs that, you know, we'll incur. Can you talk a little bit more to that? I mean, we're probably gonna have to pay you more than $5,000 a year because we're gonna triple your workload. So can you talk more about the costs associated?
Yeah, at a single election or a single polling location, you have a moderator, you got 2 assistant registrars or the registrars themselves if they're present. You'll have a ballot clerk or 2. You'll have a couple checkers for early voting. How many lines you have? You're going to have a couple checkers, and then you got a tabulator tender. Even though we're not tabulating the votes, you're still going to need someone to watch that ballot box, whether they're called a tabulator tender or a ballot clerk tender. And then you're going to need a greeter or 2 in front to help them guide it, because it is different than just coming to your single polling location. Plus, somebody to set it up, somebody to tear it down. The time to take the ballots and everything and secure them each night back to town hall if you're not voting in town hall where your town clerks is, which Naugatuck cannot do. We do not have the facilities in our town hall to be able to do this. We're looking at about $4,200 a day in staffing cost alone, and that's before we start talking about additional ballots, or we start talking about any type of software systems we may need to do this, or any just even queue management, just stanchions and stuff like that to keep people, you know, in line and to be able to do that. I mean, that's just before any of that type of cost. But about $4,200 a day we're looking at to fund 1 day of early voting for 1 location. So double that for a large town that may need 2 locations.
Thank you. And just, and we've had discussions about this, and I've always been interested in your input and how we roll this out. Can you just speak just briefly to kind of your suggestion how we roll this out in terms of kind of a uniform system across the state so as to avoid towns doing things individually or
I'm very much, my mindset is local control as much as possible, but I don't see a system where, Naugatuck is voting from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., but Waterbury has 10 p.m. to 6 p.m., and Beacon Falls is noon to 6 p.m., and then Middlebury is only 2 to 4 p.m., and, that's just mass confusion. And then maybe they vote on this day, but then Naugatuck doesn't vote on this day. It really needs to be uniform across all municipalities in the state. And I do agree with Secretary Thomas earlier, who said, maybe a lesser time for municipal elections and primary times rather than doing the 10, 14 days. Keep the 10 to 14 days for your governor's election and your presidential elections in the even years, but for primaries and other times, maybe it's just 5 days or even 3 days or less. But it's to keep it uniform across all in the town is almost a requirement. Otherwise, it's just going to be, well, I could vote today, but that person can't vote today, or that person can vote tomorrow, but not today. So it will become a troublesome for the electors or for the voters.
Okay, that's all I have. I appreciate you coming up with your testimony today. And again, thank you for the work you do for Naugatuck and the effort that you put into. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Bronko.